Hey woodworkers, so talking about the finishing touches on this tabletop. So it's fairly traditional to have a little centerpiece here that offsets where all of these things terminate. I believe we talked about this a little bit when I was cutting the veneer. It also covers up or takes away some of the notice or the focus on any mistakes that might have happened. So I've got just a little bit of tear out in here, which you may or may not be able to see on these tips. As I said, I could have done a better job of recutting these pieces before I glued them together or taped them together and then glued it down. But I knew that I was going to be putting in this piece, so I was really not worried about this at all. Okay, so what I have done is I've carried over the center line because it was left back here on this back edge. So I've carried that up, and then from that center line I started to kind of work over a shape with just freehand, just kind of creating a gentle curve that has a relationship with the outside edge of this tabletop. So I think a lot of people will get into some trouble if they have something really steep that creates a curve that really has no relationship with the exterior of this. And so same goes for the length, the peak. It's really going to be a personal choice as far as what it is you want to pursue and how to apply this. So I'm happy with what you see with the white lines here. So center line is kind of freehanding this out, and then from there I've established these two starting and stopping points. And just measuring this thing out to make sure that I'm truly symmetrical. I've done all this off camera, and that's lining up to where it is I want it. I could have used number 2 pencil here, but the white pencil, as we've talked about, shows up a little bit easier on this darker wood. So drawing that out is the first start, or the first step in this process. The next thing that I need to do is grab some material that's going to function as my template to cut this piece out, or to shape this so I can fill it with another piece. So this is going to be my template, and you can see that I've started to carry over some of these lines. This is the curve, but I wanted to walk you through a little bit of that process here. Alright, so going off of the center line, I'm going to carry up the starting and stopping points there and there. I'm not really getting too fixated on the accuracy of this. I just want to get the broad strokes of this down. Likelihood that this is going to tweak and adjust and be modified is fairly common. So, alright, so from there, I'm going to set up where I think I have the peak, and that is there. Alright, so in essence, these 3 location marks are what I'm starting with. At that point, I can go back, or at this point I should say, I can go back and start freehanding this and try to match this, but I really do want to make this as closer to accurate as I can. So I'm going to get rid of the tabletop, which I needed to develop the overall relationship, and that seems to be befitting. I'm now going to use something very similar to a compass, in that I've got a center point here and something to make a mark with. These are referred to as trammel points, and then you just mill up a board that will fit between these things. You can tighten them down, and you can make this thing 30 feet long if you wanted to, but it really doesn't matter the size. But the problem with this is that I don't have a starting point here that will do 2 things. Keep this at the same elevation, and then also be able to continue the center line all the way down. So because of that, I've introduced, or I've made this little board center line here that will be continuous. I don't want to shift this laterally. I started off making a center line here because I thought that I might need a slightly longer radius for doing this, but I do not. So this is what I need. These are the locations for doing it. And now I'm actually going to start by landing that on the peak, and then before I draw it in, just make sure that my marks are where they should be. So I'm a little bit off center. Alright, I'm going to slide this thing over a bit. That looks like I know what I'm doing now. Alright. Not sure what happened with my center line, but I really don't care. Okay. So that's that. This piece I no longer need. Trammer points have done their job. At this point, I need to take this to the bandsaw and cut most of the shape out, but not right to the line. I do need to create a really clean, accurate curve into this environment. So bandsaw first, just to get out most of the material, and then what I'll do is I'll take this to the end of a spindle sander. So we have that drum on the end of this, and it's an edge sander. It's a horizontal. This board is going to be mounted horizontally onto a bed. The rotation here, so I'm going to be starting to sand or fair this thing out just by going against the direction of that rotation, and then I'm just going to continue to watch this and track it and get as close to my line as I can. I'm also going to use my fingers to feel how accurate and how smooth that curve is. If there's any wiggle or hiccup in this operation, it's only going to translate when I now use this as my template for the real piece. So I want to do as best as I can with accuracy on this, and I feel like this is a faster way to do it. The other option would be to set up a handheld router and keeping these two pieces stationary, maybe screwing this into a piece of plywood or something. I could then just run. You would have to have a base with an elongated section. You could make your own out of plywood or something. But then I could just continue to cut this, and then I'd get a nice clean arc, and that's fine. That works. I feel like I'm comfortable enough on the sander that the time it would take me to set that up with a router, it just doesn't make any sense. So I'll be able to knock this out and come back in a few minutes, and then we'll set up the router. All right. See you in a bit.